the senator, while indoctrinated, could not explain his toxicity.
Italy? Whiskey? Ah, Italy! You could never lock my secret. Oh no! Suddenly! No, leave me!
Let's begin.
Indeed.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian, and this is the Fireside Chat, and I'm here with a very special guest. Here with Ava Brighton. Ava Brighton is, well, basically, you're just a YouTuber. I mean, that's how I know you. And you talked about gender politics, specifically on the subjects of MGTOW, the emasculation of men, and radical feminism. So welcome to the show, Ava.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. No, I'm glad to have you on. So before we start, Ava, where are you from, and where are you from originally, and where are you at now?
I'm from Holland, small country in Europe, and currently living in Spain. So I'm in Spain right now.
Ah, I see. Yeah, I think I'm familiar with Holland. That's the place with the windmills and the wooden shoes. That's all I know about it.
Yes, that's correct. That's the one.
So, I saw you only have 8 videos on your channel, but they're really great videos. And I asked you on because I saw the first video I came across. It was YouTube recommended it to me. It was called "Are Almost All Women Mentally Insane?" I think is the title. And I remember
Correct.
saying, "Ooh, that's edgy," and there's a woman saying it, so I need to watch this. And I watched it, and then I immediately went to Facebook and tried to add you as a friend. So,
Okay.
I guess what I'm wondering about is what was the impetus for you to make that video and also other videos? Like, why did you decide you wanted to talk about this stuff on YouTube, especially considering that what you would be discussing, which was essentially critical of women, would probably make you very unpopular?
Yeah. I think the thing that really triggered making videos. I was already toying with the idea for a couple of months. I've experienced some things with women in my life, and for the past, I think, 7 years with my partner, I've experienced with his ex-wife terrible things, and I wanted to speak out about that, but I just didn't know how to do this. So the first video, I didn't really immediately want to talk about the things that happened or what happens to men in general in the whole world. So I just started making a video about how I saw women becoming in this, especially the younger generation. I just got annoyed by the things that I saw, the level of intelligence, the things they do on Facebook or say on the television, and almost anything. When I would open my Facebook or watch a program, it were all women. Where were the men? I would say they're only women almost.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just annoyed, not for the fact that there were a lot of women on the television, but that the level of intelligence, the things that they say, the memes that they share, the way they express themselves, I was really annoyed by that. So I thought perhaps good if I wanted to start making videos, start with just the thing that triggered me, and that was what I saw, what those women said and did.
Mm-hmm.
And later on, I wanted to make some more videos about the things that I've experienced. But first, it was just only the women that I saw, what they were doing and how they were pretending to be what they were not. I think.
Yeah.
So that's the reason.
Okay. Out of curiosity, you said something about your partner
Yeah.
having bad experience with a woman or women in general. I'm not sure which, but I guess what I'm wondering about is it okay for you to share a little bit of what your partner was experiencing? And if it's not, then that's okay. I because I know that could be
Yeah.
private for you. So
Yeah, well, no, that's no problem. It started, I think, it is already 18 years ago or more, 19 years ago, I think, that he had a relationship with a woman, and pretty quickly they got a child together, a daughter,
hmm.
and this woman had borderline personality syndrome. So in the relationship, there were already large mood swings and everything, but that's normal if you have borderline personality disorder. You need to cope with a lot of mental issues, so there was nothing wrong there, but suddenly she just left him. She did all kinds of things that are too much to explain, and too much to get into. But the main thing is that she just decided to leave without a reason and take the child. And they were then living in Spain as well. And she
Yeah.
got some information on the new law that was in Spain since 2004. um, the law was the Ley de Géneros, which means it's the law against domestic violence. But this law is only for women. If a man gets
It's
beaten up by his wife, they
yeah.
don't do anything.
Yeah, that's
It's
just
only
like
for the women.
we have the same thing here. We have the Violence Against Women Act, and we also have the Duluth model, and we also
The Luke
have
model, yeah,
basically just how we deal with all domestic violence, period. It's
yeah,
just presumed
yeah.
that women are victims, men are perpetrators.
Yes, exactly. So this law in Spain was based on the Duluth model, and she got she someone told her that in that time this law was so ridiculous that if violence occurred in the house of the man,
Mm-hmm.
you could get the house of the man instantly if you just report him for violence, for abuse, domestic abuse. The court would order that the man needs to leave the house. They change the deeds to the woman, and that was it at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
But she didn't know that. She knew that she could just get a lot of money by claiming that he had abused her. So that's what she did. He immediately lost custody of his child, and he was ordered to pay €4,000 a month. At that time, he was very wealthy, and she had just gotten a mortgage in his name. That's what she did, with a fake signature. And she took that money and claimed that she needed €4,000 a month as well for the child.
Mm-hmm.
And Spain was at that point with the new law that they gave her everything that she wanted, which resulted in everything, that my partner lost everything except his house, because she was not clever enough to claim that the violence occurred in his house. So he did not lose his house, but he lost his child and his income and everything. But the thing is, I wasn't there, obviously. It was years before I met him. And but still, until this very day, she continues to try and destroy everything that he does, and try to destroy everything that I do. So that was basically the thing that made me want to speak out, because I saw later on that this was happening to hundreds of thousands of men around the world.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
that and the system, it wouldn't be a problem that because obviously there are men and women that do unforgivable, horrible things.
yeah,
But the
obviously.
main problem is that when women have a system by which they can act on it. They can
Yes,
use the system, the
yeah,
government. They can use the police. They can use all these
yeah,
structures to attack men. And
yeah,
like you said, you made a video where you talked about MGTOW. It had MGTOW in the name. I can't remember exactly the name of it right now, but in it you said, in it you said, well, MGTOW are going their own way, but where are they going? And it sounds like it's a criticism of MGTOW, but it's not. It's just that what it's trying to say is women use, and it's specifically, I guess you could say feminist women, but they use the system to create more and more laws to control male behavior, so that even if you are a man who lives, unless you disappear off the grid completely and no one finds you, you can't avoid what women can institutionally do to men. Like manspreading has actually resulted in arrests, and teachers rape their male students, and all of this other stuff.
Yeah. Yes, my video was indeed, like you said, it was not criticism at all against MGTOW, because I understand completely where they're coming from. And in this day and age, how the laws are only for women, and they're getting more ridiculous since the Me Too movement, or even a little bit before that already, but it was after the Me Too movement. It is completely insane now. I understand that there's just for men that have experienced this already, like my partner, but also men that just see it happening around them. For them, there's only one way to go, and that's to avoid all women, which I understand completely, because that's what the women have caused. The only thing that I wanted to speak about is that many people, when I speak with many people, they say, well, it's just a wave. Women are crazy sometimes, but a lot of women are good, and this will pass. But I think when you look at history, you don't see that there's a time in which all women are now in key positions to make to change the laws. It's new. It's the last 10 or 20 years that they're actual lawyers and judges and mediators and everything, or police or anything. And this makes it really difficult to say that this will pass. If these women really think, as a collective, really think that men are perpetrators by default, and believe all women, the things that they say in their marches and on the internet and everything, the youth is going to believe it, and they are going to be new judges. If you look at Sweden, for example, that's the first land of the world which is governed completely by feminists.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think that you can just go your own way, that's a good thing to do, but it doesn't stop these females from changing the laws to take away more rights of men. And that's what I'm concerned about it. I'm really concerned about this. But some people think that this will pass, but I think it will only be getting worse if this doesn't stop.
Yes. So, since we talked about Sweden, I wanted to ask you about Holland. I don't know how long you've been there, like, because you say you live in Spain now. But could you comment on the state of, let's say, feminism in Holland? Like, do they have the same kind of stranglehold on the culture that they have in Sweden?
Well, it's not as bad as in Sweden now, because the government is still man and woman. It's not like Sweden in that area. But the feminists in Holland, they copy everything what other countries do, especially from America. So the feminists are rising there as well, and there are a lot of political parties that change things about Holland because that fits in the feministic mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Small things, but they are changing, I see. Because when I lived in Holland, I really didn't. The youth in schools really never learned anything about gender politics or feminism. It just wasn't a topic. Nothing at all. It was just, in my experience, it was just normal, how it should be. but when I left the Netherlands, it was a rising thing, the feminists, and it's changed big time now.
Mm-hmm. And I think is it in Sweden where they introduced a gender neutral pronoun? And there was hen, I think it is. I've heard people say that that's actually not become like a mainstream thing, that I think either are in Sweden or they followed the story closer, because there's a lot of stuff about the story regarding that's not in English, so I have to rely on other people that are closer to it. But I do see the news stories that are pushing it really hard, even if it may not have absolutely caught on. I was wondering if you knew about that.
No, as well, like you said, I need to rely on the things that people tell me about it, or the documentaries or things that I see on the internet. Because I'm not Swedish and I don't understand their language. But what I've heard is that indeed they try to push it, and I don't think it's legislated as at the moment yet, but it's a feminist government, so you can expect everything, I think. But they have specific gender pronouns now, like hen. That's the correct one that I've heard about. But what I've also heard is something that they try to keep out of mainstream, is that there is a specific social media police going on. They're looking in personal Facebook accounts or forums on the internet or something, where they want to it's just like shadow banning people that are saying things that they don't want to be people to hear. That's the thing that happens everywhere, obviously. But there is specific police for Facebook and social media in Sweden now, where if men are in a specific group there on the internet, or is it Facebook or something, where they are like MGTOWs or something, and they're just only men, and they're discussing they're discussing about what they think about feminism or anything like that. They're thrown off of social media, or and it's getting a little bit more dangerous for people to express their feelings or thoughts, as it's becoming a little bit more like a war. You cannot say anything like it's already in the world. You cannot say specific things. But even in private groups, they're trying to silence everyone who is against feminism or for men or anything like that. That's what I've heard from various people from Sweden who live there. So that's just a thing that I see that is coming now. But that's not yet legislated or anything. But they're really working hard on trying to get all the laws against men. That's just what I heard and what I see. There's definitely a trend all over Europe and the West to do this kind of stuff, and I'm not excluding Asia or the Far East or the Middle East, because I know that there's stuff going on, like similar things happening in in Korea, South Korea, China, Japan, etc. But I can't speak to the details, so I'm sort of talking about the West in general. However, in about 10 minutes, I'm going to read off Super Chat. So if you guys have any questions or comments for Ava, send them through in a Super Chat, and I will read them in about 10 minutes. So thank you. Thank you in advance for anybody who donates. So I'm going back to your background. So in Spain, it's obviously a big problem as well. One of the things that you talked about in one of your videos is about the emasculation or the demasculinization of men, and this is something that it's happening culturally for the most part. That's where the pressure comes from. It's social pressure, it's cultural pressure, it's through the media, and mainstream culture, pop culture, and I think that it is kind of it's really obvious, but oddly enough, you're not allowed to talk about it. Like if you see this trend, it's sort of like politically incorrect, which is a kind of control. And I guess the first thing I wanted to say is
it seems like these tactics that feminists employ, which are usually the goal is to ultimately create top-down control from like some authority, like the government or something similar. And when they can't do that, then they try to do something different where they make it sort of fashionable to feel a certain way. And the idea is to infect the larger population of normies to agree with their politics, so that then they have a mob mentality. So it's either like top down, or it's like through the mob, through mass appeal. And I guess what I'm wondering about is, first off, do you think that that's like that my observation on that is accurate? And also, what are some examples of this demasculinization or this emasculation of men that you think are the most troublesome?
Well, I think that your view on that is similar to mine. Yes, because I think when you look at the laws that are already being legislated, it's just I think I might be. It might be not. I'm not really sure, but I think that most of them, most of those laws against men, as the laws like men spreading, some
Yeah.
small laws like that, just
Yeah,
not very important.
catcalling is against the law in Nottingham,
Yeah,
but I think that they're actually
yeah,
exercising it everywhere.
yeah,
Women can just call police if they feel threatened by a man.
absolutely, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, and I think that those are legislated only because because of the large screaming group that calls themselves feminists. Uh, um, I think they feel threatened or something. I don't know why that is, because obviously there are men that are legislating this as well. There's not
hmm,
only female in Sweden that's a feministic government, but in other countries it's not. So I think it's just they try to push people into thinking the same way with lies most of the time. And I think that people are just afraid to go against it, because indeed when you as an individual go on social media and you have a lot of friends or family or people that you know in your group, in your list, you already, I think everyone understands the feeling that you're not allowed to say everything that you think, because that group of people, they scream so loudly that this is just becoming the norm, and everything that's a little bit that is not as exactly as they think
yeah,
then you're a racist or a fascist, or and it, even when it's about veganism or something, I'm not against that at all. Obviously, that's just a good thing. But how they're trying to push it on people, and how they try to make you look if you're eating a piece of meat or something, that's just the tactic that they have. They
yeah,
try to, yeah, they try to make it look as if it's really a bad thing, and they're all for good things. And I think that's the way they try to make new laws against men, because people that don't know what feminism is about think that it's a good thing, because of the years ago the women really wanted the right to vote or something. They think these things. It's just a general thing. People don't search on the internet for the actual rules of feminism, but they just think it's a good thing.
yeah,
But that's why you are not allowed to speak against it, because they are only acting as if everything they do is a good thing, and if you're against it, it's a bad thing. um yeah, that's just, this is what I think. It's just
yeah,
many people just don't know.
yeah. That I mean, I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think that's right. I think that there are a small number of very vocal people with a very large platform Whether they're in academia, because there's a majority of feminists in academia, there's a majority of feminists in the entertainment industry. If not, it's almost like completely monolithic in that, because a lot of times if you're not towing the line, you are ousted, or you have to stay in the closet, as it were, if you're not a feminist. And I think, even though in Sweden, I think this is where I kind of partly disagree. Even though Sweden has a completely feminine government with a feminist agenda, I don't think that countries that have a majority, or even like a 50-50 male-female government, are less feminist, because I think male feminists absolutely exist, and I think that male feminists are more likely to exercise their power than female feminists, because male feminists benefit from people assuming that they have agency because they're men, so they think that they have power, and they think they're just using it for good. It's like it's like the One Ring. So
it's correct. I think that you're correct in that. Yes.
So for example, in the United States, because I get into debates with the feminists a lot, and they will tell me, in the United States there's never been a female president, and this and the people that are the majority of people, if not all the people that are voting on what women can do with their bodies, are old white men. This is how they often describe it. And I counter that by saying, but the majority of people who voted them into office are women, because women are the ones that make up the majority of voters. And when women vote, they vote in their own best interests. And the men who get elected, or women who get elected, but I'm talking about cases where men are elected. When men get elected, it is presumed that the services that they're going to give, or the things that they're going to do, or the promises they're going to keep, are the ones that the women are planning to hold them to. So this is men acting in the interests of women. And I think that that's important, so that we don't get it confused, because when a man does something, he's usually doing it for women. And when a woman does something, she's also usually doing it for women.
Yes, exactly. No, that's correct. That's a good thing to say, because that's why people misread many times they misread what I meant when I said that men are stupid enough to let this happen, and women are sick enough to invent this insanity. That's the thing that I obviously said in my first video.
But you're absolutely right. It's true.
Yeah, that's the only thing that I meant with that is exactly what you just said. Because it started as being all male in as lawmakers or presidents, and obviously they listen to women as well. They think of women as well, and I think these women have used their marching under the impression of being a feminist, which I think is now not longer it doesn't exist anymore, in my opinion, but that's another thing. But I think they use their loud voices and marching and everything to try and get men to change specific laws. They gained their equality. They are able to vote or be elected. And they work themselves up in key positions. And then I think from in the inside, they're going to change a lot more than a man ever would do. That's what I'm not sure that will be the future, but that's just the feeling that I'm getting when I look at Sweden and obviously when I look at the loud screaming feminists of today, they are saying exactly what they want the future to be, and it's all female, and it's all without men. Okay. So if they are already saying this in public, what they're saying in private when they come together. You know what their agenda is, and it's not looking good for men at all.
Not at all, especially boys. But our boys are very they're in a lot of danger. I mean, there hasn't necessarily been an increase in mass shootings, because actually, like in the United States, there's a lot of news that goes out when there's a mass shooting or a school shooting, and it gets all this media attention. But the fact is that shootings overall are on the decline, and that includes school shootings. However, the fact that we're putting such a focus on it And the solutions, which they're very rarely offered, almost never have anything to do with addressing what the struggles of that boy were and how we can fix them. And it's always they're blaming masculinity in the abstract. They blame guns. They blame,
Toxic masculinity.
Yeah, toxic masculinity. They talk about entitlement to female bodies. They talk about incels. It's all these other things, and they never really ever get to the root of the issue. I think that this, and of course they medicate our kids. They surround them with women in schools. They're raised by feminist women, essentially. And those women don't understand their gender. And this is why boys fail in schools. They're doing so badly. And these boys will become men if they don't kill themselves or a bunch of other people. And they're not going to be ready for the world. And the future is very bleak.
Yeah. Exactly. That's what I'm concerned about as well, because that what like you say, there's a majority of female teachers in Holland and in Spain, and I presume it's in America as well. And there are countless of studies that are not being talked about in mainstream media that say that it's bad for a boy to be only to have only a mother and only teachers. It's just there are specific things that boys need. They need a male role model. They need to see or they need to have a father figure in their lives. And those things are very important, obviously. And if you keep that all away from them, if there are a lot of female teachers, you don't even know what they're teaching their children in schools. It's getting more ridiculous now than it's ever been before, I think. Like, for example, I don't know if you've seen my video about Aurelia Vera, but that's a Spanish teacher who's in the political party here in Spain.
Yes, she actually said that she wanted to essentially castrate boys and men and bring about a matriarchy. And she actually used the word matriarchy.
Yes, that's correct. That's the one. And this is just one, because there were parents who were concerned about what they heard from their children, and they put a recording iPhone in one of their school bags. So none of the children even knew that the teaching was recorded. But then this woman, was completely insane. Obviously, what she was teaching boys as well, and just telling them that cutting off their testicles would be good if it would be done by a specific
professional
group of men. 25% of male population should be castrated, because that way they are not able to fight against a matriarchy. That's just insane. But the thing that I wanted to show with that is just this was just one woman, and she's even in the politics in Spain. So if they are already teaching children this, and you don't even know what they're teaching your children, if they're more like this, because you hear it all over the world. You hear the same agenda coming.
Just remember, that's just the woman that got caught. But you don't know how many others are doing something like this.
Exactly what I mean.
Yes. So just again, a reminder to you guys, Ava's, the English is her second language, but you're doing really well. Your English is still good, considering you said that you haven't spoken it for about a week. You're doing very well. You're welcome. All right, I have a super chat, and then I'm going to ask some tougher questions. So Jonathan Rossler gives us $5, and he says it will eventually pass. The only question is whether the society is still around after it does. All right. Well, thank you for that, Jonathan. Actually, this is a pattern that we have seen over and over, and it usually happens once women start organizing and they start to get politically involved. It almost always inevitably leads to societal collapse. Now, I'm just pointing out that this is the cycle, but I think because we live in the information age, it can be averted. So now, Do you know what I'm saying, Ava? Like, this happened in Rome.
Yeah.
This happened in many other civilizations, great empires that fell. They did once women started exercising political power, and they started demanding rights, and they started demanding freedoms and claiming oppression and all of that. And that almost always
Hmm.
leads. It's a cycle that we've gone through over and over. So,
Yeah.
okay. So now on to some tougher questions. You have described, Jack Daniels gives us $1.99 in pounds, no, euros, I'm sorry, and gives a thumbs up. Thank you, Jack Daniels. You have described feminism, you defined as something as though it's a different animal or something separate from the kinds of crazy people we're talking about now that call themselves feminists. Do you understand what I'm saying? So
That there's a difference between feminists and the ones that I describe, or what do you
yeah.
say?
Like you said that you basically started a video. I think you started a video by saying the definition of feminism is this. It's basically like, gender equality, right? And
Mhm.
but the people who call themselves feminists are not acting in accordance with that definition, and that they are actually what a lot of feminists call misandrists.
Yeah.
And they're just exercising that or something else, which I think it's a word that you use that basically says that you want to genocide or kill all men. I can't remember the word.
Phonocendrist.
Oh yeah, say again.
Yeah. Phonocendrist. But that doesn't exist. As I explained in the video, that was a word that I came up with
Mm-hmm.
because misandrist is coming from the Greek, obviously. So I used the same Greek terms for describing not man hate, because it's far worse than man hate what they do.
Mm-hmm.
It's the eradication of man. It's the destroying of men. So the phonocendrist, as I came up with, is just a word that describes real killing of men instead of just hating men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I guess so my question is this: what's the difference between a feminist and that, or a misandrist?
Yeah. Well, the difference, in my opinion, is that a feminist used to be a woman that wanted equality. So that's just the definition as described on the internet. It doesn't mean that I'm for or against it. It
Mm-hmm.
just is that's just the definition of a feminist. If feminism, if equality is already there, and if, in my opinion, women are already superior to men in many ways, um, that's the reason I think that feminism just is in Western world, obviously, is no longer something that should exist, or is something that there's no need to be a feminist anymore in the Western society. Women have the power. They have they can vote. They can do anything they want. So I don't understand why feminists still think that they need to fight for equality when there's already more than equality. For that, then I say, if it's misandrist, then yes, obviously it's a man-hating group of people. But if you see like the Aurelia Vera, and if you see the feminists that are screaming loudly, the ones that you hear, they ask people to kill all men. It's just you can say, oh, that's funny, and it's nothing serious. But I don't think that is really that serious. There are groups of young children, young people, young women that are listening to this, and
Mm-hmm.
they are starting to hate. So it started with misandrist, obviously, but it's that's why I came up with the word phonocendrist, because it's converting into really destroying men,
It's
really killing
beyond,
men.
yeah, it's beyond misandry. Although I guess
Yes,
it's
beyond.
you
Sorry.
say phenocendrist. Is that the way you pronounce it? Phenocendrist.
Yeah,
Um,
the way I pronounce it is not a
yeah,
word. So yes,
yeah. No, I
phonocendrist.
want to make sure I'm getting the pronunciation right, because it could become a thing. So a phenocendrist is somebody who wishes for the extermination of men.
Yeah.
And a misandrist is someone who just hates men. And so you're saying
correct.
phenocentris is something that's a step beyond that. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So the thing I'm wondering about is, do you think that feminism was ever about equality?
I really need to look into that a little bit more, because I'm starting to believe that feminism at its core was just, no, I don't think so. I think that that women, they use this good looking word, like feminists need equality, good looking thing, they use it to gain more power, and it's working all the time. So I don't think, but I need to look into the start of feminism a little bit more, because I'm not sure about that, because I've been trying to get the correct information on whether just trivial things like did they really need to have a right to vote, or how this started. And I'm not really, I haven't found a correct source yet to
Yeah.
make up my opinion.
I know
But
it's fine. I thought I would ask because it's just a journey we all start on. I think that most people that find themselves to be anti-feminist or critical of current feminism, they say that, at one point in time we did need it. And I don't have anything against somebody believing that. I'm open to being wrong about it, but I don't think we do. I don't think we ever did. I think that there's a big difference between being an advocate for women and being a feminist. And I think there was always a difference between those two things.
yeah,
And I think that feminism it's very good at co-opting the good deeds of good people, well-meaning people in the past, to basically say, oh no, that was us, we did that, our ideology did that. And that always, like, I have a poster in my room in the studio, and it is the very famous "We Can Do It" poster. Do you know about the "We Can Do It" poster from World War II? It's Rosie the Riveter. She's got her arm, and she's holding the hand. It says "We can do it," and she's got the bandana. I have it in my room, and I was doing a show when I had the camera on, and it was in the background, and my guest said, "Why do you have that? I thought that you were, an anti-feminist." And I said, "Well, I am, but this is not a feminist image. They co-opted it. They said it's theirs. They said it belongs to them. But a woman who chooses to help the war effort by working in the factories to help do her part to help the men in her country win a war that was a just war, none of that is feminist at all. And the interesting fact about it is the woman who was painted for Rosie the Riveter, she only did that, she posed for that painting, and she only worked in the factory for about a month, and then she quit because she couldn't handle the work. It was too hard. So, and I'm not laughing at her expense. I mean, like, it's just not for everybody. But the point is that I won't let them have things that they want to lay claim to.
Yeah. I understand. I didn't know about that, but I understand it completely. Yes, they try to use things that they didn't do and make it as if they achieved those things, those good things.
Exactly. Like the vote, for example. The at least in the United States, because I know that, or in the UK, women were going to get the vote anyway, and there were two different groups that were actually trying to get the vote. One was trying to get the vote just for women. Yes, and then there was and then there was one that was trying to get the vote for women and men, because before that, the vote was only available to households of a certain standing, and not to just any man. That's the reason why if a man wants the vote, to this very day, he has to, be eligible for conscription. It's so his right to the vote is conditional. It's not even a right, but his ability to get the vote is conditional, whereas a woman's is not. So and that was actually bringing to my next question, which may not appear to be related to men's or women's issues, but do you think that voting is a right?
I don't know. What do you mean? Voting? I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
Opposed to what?
As opposed to a privilege.
Oh, okay. I never thought of it. I don't know. I for giving a correct answer to that, I really need to think about it.
It's okay.
I don't know.
It's okay.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. It's all right. These are more difficult questions that I've asked myself more recently. I think that we have. See, this is the reason why it can be confusing. I think that feminists have done a very good job. Oh, your camera's kind of blurry, Ava.
Yeah, I see.
It's okay. There you are. I think that feminists have done a really good job in distorting language to the point where it makes it difficult for us to talk about things. This is Orwellian, but it is true. And this is the reason why I have to be very... This is like, for example... the finest example of what I mean is the fact that feminists have taken the word feminism and basically broadened the definition, and they have made it so low resolution, so big that no one can possibly think it's a bad thing. So they say, well, it just means equality. It just means equality between the genders. So they've distorted that definition to the point where you can't even challenge the discussion, because by challenging it, you are saying that you're against women, and this is not allowed. And this is the reason why I bring up the thing about rights, because I think that what you see, and there are people in the chat right now that are telling me I shouldn't be bringing this up, but I think it's important. We have to remember and find what the true meanings of words were before these sort of social constructivists have changed the meanings of everything, so that it fits their belief system. And I think that we have to remain as objective and rational as possible as we do that, because it does make it more difficult to discuss difficult ideas. And so when I ask, do you think voting is a right? I guess what I'm really asking is, and you don't have to answer, but it's just something to think about, because I know it's a tough question. What is a right versus, something like a privilege or a benefit? Because when you look at what feminists are fighting for now, when you ask them, what rights do women not have in the West, they will tell you things that are not rights. They will say things like, when they use the abortion discussion, they only talk about it from the perspective of the woman carrying the child, as though the child is not a child. And I'm not saying that I have like a hard line side that I've taken on the abortion issue, but I'm looking at the way it's being framed as a right. Another one that they use is, they say the right to be able to walk home drunk and not have to worry about being raped. That's not a right that we could possibly put into any sort of legislation. The right to not feel threatened by men. The right to be able to ride the train and know that I'll be able to sit next to a guy and he's not going to touch me. The right, and so the reason why I'm saying this is because what they're talking about with rights, those are not rights, but they but they fool people by using that word over and over and over. And this is why I went all the way to the base and said, is voting a right? Because they believe that it is, and most people would if you asked them, if you said, well, because we frame it that way,
You mean when you say if it's a right, you really need to take a look at the definition of right. Is it being legislated or not?
Exactly. And when we say the word rights, what do we mean? Because this is the reason why and this is just my view, but I don't like to use the term men's rights activists to talk about MRAs, but I know that is a term that was actually put on us by feminists because they wanted to use it as a pejorative to say, well, men don't need rights. They have all the rights. So we'll call them men's rights activists because we think it's so absurd. And I think that there are only a few rights, but most of the problems that men face are actually They don't have much to do with rights themselves, although they are in many ways institutional, and they are also by and large social and cultural. So I think that there is a lot there, but it's sort of like oversimplified, and that's the reason why I drill down on that a bit. So
Okay, yes, yeah, I understand.
okay. Okay, I gotta read another super chat from someone. Mavis Hill gives us $2. I think this is Australian. And he says, does Ava know Esther Viller's book, The Manipulated Man? Do you know about that book?
No, I know about it. I've not read it. I only know it because there are a few people that commented below my videos and referred to it. So I have not yet had a chance to read it, but I have definitely heard about it. Really want to read it because they recommended it to me.
You know what you can do is actually you can find the entire book in audio form on YouTube and just listen to it.
Yes?
Yes. I listened to the whole book while doing stuff around the house and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
what was your opinion about
the book? It's good. It's a good book, but it's very critical of women. It doesn't actually talk about feminism. It talks about women, and it's written from the perspective of a woman. And I think that there is a lot of hard truths in it, but there is definitely something there. I think that you should listen to it and form your own opinion, though. It's edgy.
A woman that's from Argentina?
Esther Viller, I don't think she is.
Okay.
I don't think she is.
Okay. No, I'm going to
Maybe
listen to it. Yes, I'm really interested in it.
Oh no,
yes.
She is from Argentina. I apologize. Yes, she is.
Oh yes, she
yes.
is. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, then it's the same one.
yeah, it's the same one. Yeah. But you can just look it up on YouTube. The whole audiobook is there. It's one of those that's written. It's like read out by a robot, so it sounds a little awkward, but I believe so. But yeah, definitely check it out at some point. So the next thing I was wondering about, and this is again, these are just kind of bigger questions, and it's something I'm actually genuinely curious about. Have you heard of the nature versus nurture discussion that centers on gender when it comes to feminist perspective and the non-feminist perspective?
I've heard about it, yes, but in English that was a little bit too much for me. So I've really no, I've heard about it a lot of times. There's a lot of people are referring to it as well. But now I've not yet any opinion on it because it was just too. I really need to sit down and read in order to understand if I read it in English.
Yeah, the reason why I ask is because I think you were touching on some of this discussion in your videos, and one thing that I've been thinking about. So I'll just put it out there. Non-feminists, anti-feminists, and MRA types have talked about the nurture versus nature discussion in that essentially just pushing back on the idea that gender and even sex and sexuality is all socially constructed. It's all stuff that's just pushed on men and women by gender roles and stereotypes. And this is the argument that feminists make. Everything is socially constructed, and therefore it can be socially reconstructed. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay. So what people who are dissidents or people who disagree would say is that we have evolved this way. We've evolved with these traits, and they are at least, partly like 50-50, if not almost completely biologically inherited. And one of the things I was thinking about is that I've noticed is that women tend to adopt the social pressures more quickly and sort of repeat the behavior than men do. So I'm wondering, maybe I believe that we're maybe like, maybe it's half and half, maybe. And that you can have some degree of influence. I think it has to be something, because otherwise feminists wouldn't be able to do any social construction, and they obviously do. On some level, they influence males and females to be more like what they want, which is something akin to androgyny. And so I guess what I'm wondering is First of all, what do you think about this idea that, these ideas that gender is a social construct? Do you think it's half and half? Do you think it's completely socialized? Do you think it's completely biological? And have you noticed that when it does take hold, it seems that women are actually more inclined to be affected by it? So I don't know if you follow what I'm saying.
Yes, I think I follow. Yes, but it's a thing that I really need to think about. What I think that it's I would in the first thing that I think about now, because I really haven't thought about it before. But I think it's not specifically 50-50 or something, but I think it's both ways. It's something that it's in nature, but it's also something that you can change with pressure of in a society, specific rules or specific ways that people do things. You can adopt and think that you feel the same way as how you've been taught, I think. So I think it's a little bit of both ways. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure about it, because it's just a very, very difficult
Yeah, it is.
difficult thing that I really need to think about before I can make an honest opinion about it.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a really involved topic. I was talking about it with my wife, and I was just thinking to her, because I was under the belief, it was a pretty hard belief, that we are inclined to fall back on our biology, even if there is some degree of social pressure. And I think that if people are denied their biology, if it's pushed against them, then the people will go along with the socialization, but they'll be unhappy. A feminist, for example, I'll sympathize with feminists in this, because I do. A feminist girl goes to she stays feminine, and she's happy in her femininity, and she wears her hair long, and she's pretty, and she's thin, and she takes care of herself, and she eats well, and she stays like this all through high school. And then she goes to college, and then she's taught feminism, and she's taught all of these negative things about just being feminine, just like wearing dresses, wearing makeup, being taking care of yourself physically, it's shaving, like all of these things are oppressive structures that need to be dismantled. So this girl, she wants to push back on that, and she gets piercings, and she cuts her hair, and she colors it purple, and she puts on weight because she stops caring about her appearance, and she stops shaving. And this is not a misrepresentation of reality. This happens. She gets tattoos, she becomes really rebellious. She starts wearing man's clothes. She declares herself to be androgynous or bisexual or something like that. And she does all this to punch up at the oppressive male systems that her instructors told her about. And she becomes an example of how you can socialize someone to be, more androgynous, less feminine, whatever. But she's also really, really unhappy. So as a result,
No, I understand what you mean, because when I was thinking about feminists as how they are now, just like you said, the not all obviously, but the ones that you see the most, that they have pink short hair. They gain weight. When I was taking a closer look to how they all look the same.
Yes.
The only conclusion I came up with is this must be the reason that they must do this. Must be because they feel like men have created a specific way a woman should look. That's what they think. That's I think that's their thought on it, and they want to do exactly the opposite of what men think that a woman should look like. So they don't want to be thin, they don't want to have long hair, they don't want to wear makeup, they don't want to shave, they just like all the things that you described. But then again, I am not sure how we grew up. When it was just you always tend to look around you and dress the way fashion does. A lot of people do this. So
Mm-hmm.
you might be more happy with yourself if you grow up in a certain way and think this is the way I want to look, or this is the way I want to dress. Obviously, I think that will make you happy, because then it's really you might think it's really your own choice, and it's just that's it, and then you're happy. But if you've been taught then later, like your example, when you go to high school and you've been taught all these things about feminism and about anti-male, then I think that you're trying to change what you have become, and that will make you unhappy. Like you see with transgender people, I think that there are a lot of people. There are what I saw on the internet. It was a 0.5% of people worldwide that already identified themselves as being a transgender.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look today on the internet, on social media, on the television, you get the feeling that there are hundreds of thousands or millions of transgenders now, which I think is a fashion thing. It's starting to become a fashion thing, just
It is.
to be transgender. And that, if you push that on people or on children, that's even worse. But if you push it on yourself, because you see this as a trend, obviously I understand completely that this will not make you happy, because that's not your true self.
Right.
But it's just the way you've been taught to be.
Yes. Ironically, feminists that are in university that get these social pressures to be everything that a man does not like, or at least that's what they try to do. Ironically, they all do end up becoming everything that feminists like. So they do end up falling into some kind of under some kind of authority approval, but it's just the opposite. It's not men. And oddly enough, on top of that, there are still men that like that. So it doesn't really, you still end up making some men, attracted to you, because the fact is that men aren't really that picky. So.
That's true. But you've seen it already before before the last wave of feminists. You already see children or teenagers going through phases because they try to find their true identity, and they always look at other people and they choose a specific path to go. They listen to a specific kind of music, and they dress alike, how you should dress when you listen to that kind of music. So I think that's just something that is in humans tend to do this always.
Mm-hmm.
And if you see a lot of feminists these days, then I can understand that this trend is, you see more and more feminists rising now, because that's just, they follow that path now. It's something that we all did throughout history. I think it's just that something that we do.
I do think that feminism is becoming less popular with normies, I think that even it's becoming less popular with normies, although I think that doesn't mean that there isn't a kind of gynocentric status quo that almost everyone adopts, even if they don't call themselves feminists. I think that is the real obstacle. But I wanted to talk about another thing that you mentioned in one of your videos. You said that essentially, and again, this isn't a criticism of MGTOW, but in the same video where you were discussing MGTOW, you were saying that feminists are going to continue to pull to try to get these really authoritarian anti-male laws passed, and they're going to keep chipping away at men's freedom and men's autonomy and masculinity itself, and just as they've been doing through, the school system and the legal system, and now the Psychological Association has declared toxic masculinity a valid thing, to talk about. And so men can't escape this reality, even if they try to escape women. And I guess what I'm wondering about is, what can men do? Or what can men do to change what's happening? Or can they not do anything to change what's happening?
Well, I've been thinking about that a long time, because I might be a little bit too skeptical about options for men now, because that's just the things that I see make me really afraid of the future for men, but also for women, because of how the laws are changing now. And um, at first I would say, if there are still men in it's difficult. If there are still men making laws, obviously. But if the majority of people now, or the loud screaming minority, I'm not sure, if they try to get the feminist agenda or feministic mindset legislated everywhere, like you said, even if there's not a female legislating it, there are men legislating it for women. So
Yes.
at this point, I think if you already if there's already a large group of men going their own way at this moment, something did already happen in order to make men go their own way or even go monk. It already happened. So for that, I think that men are not able to do anything about this, except for the men who are in charge. But there has to be a really big group of people together, I think, who wants to change this. Because otherwise, if for example, the majority of men go their own way, they are not trying to change it, obviously, because they are not allowed to do so. And if they try to do it, they will be in jail, because there will be some feministic lunatic in their way, trying to make it even more easy for women to get men in jail. So they are afraid to do anything about it. They're afraid to say anything about it, because it's just or they're just not allowed. And I'm not sure yet what the solution might be. I think there is a solution, but I really need to think a little bit more about it, because the only way I think that there's an option to change this is a sort of a coup, where a lot of people, men and women, together demand a change in laws, because the laws needs to be changed at first, I think, because that way men have more rights, real rights, legislated rights, like you say, because that's, if they don't have this, if a woman can just say, oh, he abused me, there's no proof or anything, the man can go to jail. So if those laws are not changed, then obviously men cannot do anything about it, because there are a lot of women, not even only feminists, but a lot of women know that they can just say that they're abused, or say that there's something that a man did to them, and the man goes to jail. Men know this, so that's why they go their own way, obviously. I don't think in that way, in like it is now. Don't think that there's an easy solution, other than if a lot of people come together, demand a change in laws, then there is a possibility that men are able to do something about it.
Yeah, I think that the key is women. And I'm going to read the super chat, and then I'll explain my point. Mr. Roboto gives us $2 and says, feminists say you will be happy, but fact is yin yang. I think what he means is, men and women are yin and yang, and you need to balance. Yeah. Okay, so thank you for the super chat, Mr. Roboto. So what I'm saying is that we're in a place where men, not only is it difficult for men to be heard when they are in pain and when they are asking for help, because feminists will shout them down, but also we just don't live in a world where people want to hear men suffering. We just push it aside. We don't want to deal with it. And I think that the only way these things are going to get addressed is if more women speak out and they basically
Mhm.
say, I stand with men and I want to help them
Yeah.
because they are suffering, and these are our brothers and our fathers and our sons, and
Yeah.
our boyfriends and our lovers and our husbands.
Yeah.
So, for example, do you know about, is it Pauline? I can't remember her name. She's an Australian government person, but I will tell you in just a second. She actually stood up for men, Pauline Hanson. And do you know who Pauline Hanson is? She's an
No, not
Australian,
really.
yeah, so she's an Australian, I guess she's a cabinet member or somebody that's got a high ranking in the Australian government. And she
Mhm.
went on and basically spoke out in support of men,
Mhm.
saying that men are the backbone of our entire society. They are fighting the fires because there's all these fighters, these fires in Australia, these bushfires, and there's firemen and firefighters going out, most men. So I'm not even going to say firefighters, I'm going to say firemen because it's mostly men, and they're going out and they're risking their lives and they're putting out the fires and they're doing this to protect Australians. And they come back home after putting their lives on the line. And there was a feminist woman, you may have
They
seen this
say
clip, that said that they're more likely to go home and beat their wives. And
beat their
so
wives. I heard of it.
yes,
Yes.
yes. And so Pauline
Yeah.
Hanson spoke up in defense of those men. And I think that this is a really good example of what I'm talking about. I think that men's suffering will only be addressed by the average person, men and women, if women are the ones that speak on their behalf. If women
Yeah.
exercise their social power, because women have tremendous social power that we don't want to acknowledge, even if we know it's true. Feminism is proof of that itself, because those
Mm.
feminists have tremendous social power while claiming they don't have any social power, and they use it to get political power. And I
Yeah.
think that this is the reason why females like yourself that speak out in defense of men, that speak out for real legal equality and wanting to actually help people, not because there's a bias towards that gender, but because it's the right thing to do, and we know that if one gender fails, both will fail. So ultimately,
Mhm.
we have to do this, and I think that
Yeah.
that's my view.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been toying with the idea to create a website, and it's not only just because there's going to be a purge on YouTube, I think, and probably will lose my account because of the things that I say, but not only because of my videos, but I wanted to, and I'm going to make a video about it as well. I wanted to make a video where I first try to collect all the stories that men have gone through, all the things that people don't want to hear, all the things where all the things that happened where men were unable to go to the police, or abuse, or losing
Mm-hmm.
their children, or anything like that, because a lot of them, they are never reported and nowhere to be found. So I was thinking that it's a good first step to get it all together on one platform. Not because I think that a lot of people want to read it, but I want to have it all together, to show the world that this is crazy and insane and really happening to hundreds and thousands of men. If you just, as one woman, if you just say, or multiple women, if you just say those things happen to men, it's a good thing. It's a good thing, because I understand that people think that people are more likely to listen to women. But I also experience, if you say that you're an anti-feminist, they don't want to listen to you at all. If you say that you want to help men, they don't want to listen to you at all, because they
Mm-hmm.
already put you in a place where you're a radical right wing immigration hating female,
That's a
probably
stretch.
pushed by some superior man or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah.
That's what they accuse me of in Holland today. But that's what I see. That's why I think that it should be men and women together, and not just a couple of people there and there in that country and there, and just making raising awareness like that. But on a bigger platform. And if I try to do this, or try to start with it with YouTube, but they demonetize me, they shadow ban me, and my personal account on Facebook is nowhere to be found. No one can find me. Only my like page, but my personal page is gone. I can enter it, but nobody can find it. So if more women just speak out like this, they need to use platforms on the internet that
Absolutely.
many people reach or can listen. So that's why I was thinking of making a website where everything can be to come together, every man and woman, with the stories that no one heard before. Probably that will be a good start, and with a large group of people together, then I think that we can change it rapidly, more rapidly than when we just wait for more women to stand up and speak out for men, because there are a lot of women speaking against men. So it takes years, I think, to change a bit when you wait for more women to speak out.
Yes, I agree. And if more women, so this is the thing, it's risky. Speaking out in defense of men is a risky thing to do, and women tend to be risk averse. So even if they agree, they tend to not want to say anything. But if enough women did it, that it felt socially safe, if not socially trendy to do it, then more and more women will do it. And if that happens, and again, this is what I mean by the social power, if that happens, the men will follow. Because right now, men will do whatever, basically all throughout history, it's been the case that whatever women say they want, men by and large will come out in support of that. Because they want to have sex with women, so they will just agree with women. And this is this goes to the reason why I think women have to do that. And in order to do that, they need to take the risk. Someone has to take the risk. So I just want to say that, like I've said to Karen and Alison and Sydney Watson and so many other women before, I thank you for taking that risk, because I know that there was probably some social cost to speaking out in defense of men. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that is true.
Yeah, and I know that that's not easy, but the more women do it, the easier it will be for others to do it as well. And I think that this is the only way we're going to have change. And I say that a person cannot have authority without responsibility. So if women have that authority, then it has to come with responsibility. You can't do both. And what feminists want is they want a world where they have authority, but they have no responsibility. And that's basically where they live now. So the last question I have for you, because we've gone for almost an hour and a half, is, are women mentally insane?
Yes, they are.
No, so we repeal the 19th is what we're saying. We're repealing the 19th. Guys, give me a R19 in the chat if you think we should repeal the 19th, because Ava just told us that they're all insane, and so they shouldn't be allowed to vote. But go ahead and answer the question. I'm sorry.
No, I would say the majority that you see on the internet is starting to be really insane. Yes, that's why I made the video. If you think you should take your menstrual blood and smear it all over your face, I don't think that's a healthy mental state in which you live. So no, I think that there are a lot of women. There are a lot of women, even that they're not feminists. They have mental health issues. Obviously, men do have it too, but you see it more happening in women, especially when they are teenagers and their hormones start to rise up. You see that they're getting more and more insane, and especially the younger generation now. There's something quite wrong with them, I think, and it's being fed by the feminists nowadays. But obviously not all women. There are a lot of women that have that see things the way they are. They're also feminists like the not the trending ones, but the ones that just think that women should be equal to men. They're not all insane, but I think
Sure.
the majority of women that you see nowadays in the newer generation, there's something quite wrong with them, I think.
Yeah, I actually think that it's the result of our testosterone levels going down. I mean, men and women have lower testosterone levels. And
Yeah.
I think that that is a big part of it. I think that, yeah, feminist socializations, I think they do have an impact. And I personally believe at this point that that women may be more susceptible to socialization and men may be more susceptible to evolutionary biology. And I think that's the reason why this argument is happening, because by and large, women have evolved a lot less altered by their evolution than men, because women have always been the selectors throughout history, and most of our evolution is sexual. So that means that the vast majority of women alive are more, I guess you could say, they've been far less altered by their, if you trace the women's lineage all the way back to the beginning, it's been far less altered, but men's has been far more altered. So I think that we are far and away more, I guess you could say, changed by sexual selection. And I think that, but I think that women are more, they may be more susceptible to socialization and social pressure, because that's like the sphere they operate in. But I don't know, that's just a theory I have, a game theory. No, but that's just a theory I have, so I don't know. That's something I'll have to look into more.
Yeah.
Albert Nada just gives us $5 Canadian, and he says feminism is a mental health condition. Please send her the links. Yeah, so apparently somebody believes that feminism itself is the insanity. It's the infection. We like to talk about it in stages like cancer. So we're currently at stage 4 feminism, kind of like a what they call it, the fourth wave, which is the intersectional feminism. So that's stage 4.
Stage
that's what
4.
we like to do. Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
a good way to express.
Yeah, that's when the tumors are visible, like right on the outside.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
All right. Well, anyway. But with that said, Ava, do you have any other questions for us, or anything else that you wanted to mention that maybe I didn't ask you about?
No, not specifically. No, not yet. Most of the time when we finish, then I come up with all the questions.
Oh, okay.
But that's too late then.
Well,
but no, at the moment, I don't think, no. I just, I really enjoyed the discussion and the talk with you. And only the last question that you, the last, he had some links, he said.
Yeah, he wants me to send you to his YouTube channel where he talks about sexual misconduct, sexual harassment going on in various Hollywood environments against men. So there's a lot of harassment against men, sexual harassment against men in entertainment, but we only ever hear about it supposedly against women, even though most of the time when they bring it up, it's actually not sexual harassment. It's a consensual exchange. You give me this role and I'll do this sexual favor for you.
Exactly.
But then they go out and they cry victim afterwards. But I'll send you the links after the show is over.
Yeah, please
okay.
do.
Okay. Yeah. So, okay, great. So I want to thank you so much, Ava, for coming on today's show. I hope that you enjoyed the talk, and maybe I'll give you some things to think about, and hopefully you'll come back on sometime.
Yeah, I hope so too. Thank you very much for having me, and I really enjoyed the talk with you.
All right.
I really like your point of views as well.
Oh, well, thank you. Okay, cool. So thank you guys for joining us on this episode of Fireside Chat. Please give this video a like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, and leave us a comment. Tell us what you think about the conversation, any points you want to bring up. I'm sure that I'll send Ava the link so you can go back and look at the comment section after this is over. And yeah, I appreciate everything that you're doing, and your partner is very lucky to have you, because you're putting your butt on the line for him, and I think that that's quite great. So With that said, I'm going to wrap up the show. Thank you so much for coming on, and we will talk to you in the next one.
Men's right activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.